Live,
Okay.
so hopefully this will get going just to warn everybody.
You got your arm back? Kinda. Yeah.
I can get up to here.
That's, they have you do the exercise where they tell you to walk your fingers up the wall to try to raise it.
No, I roll one of those big balls.
Big balls.
Down the wall.
Yeah. I figured I was starting over when they're like, well, just, what, am I, do you want me to do anything else? Like, no, that's it. And then after 3 of them, I'm like, yep, that's it. Two would have been nice.
That's 2 of them.
William was part of the crew that swam across the bay last
Oh,
Friday,
good.
and for half a second, I was like, I should totally go with him, and then I felt better.
I did that once, and the best thing was it was kind of foggy that day. So you never had, and not that you could get much of a perspective when you're that high out of the water, but you could see so little. It was actually, you could see enough, you didn't feel like you were in mortal danger.
Right.
Kayak
But not enough to be like, oh, the shore is never.
And then when you
really
got
Knocked on the door.
close enough, and it started to lift over in Petoskey.
Yes.
you
What's
thought,
her name?
Oh, God.
Iowa.
But those kids are real swim, I mean,
Yeah, it was a
Does she
group of
live
senior
there?
hammerheads and
No,
a bunch
she
of
lives
the
in
baby
Hazlet.
swimmers that they're.
Oh.
they really.
Did they go all the way to Petoskey?
Oh, yeah, no, they swam from the dog beach to the breakwall in Petoskey,
Think of it.
3.5
I was
miles.
say it's
Tell
Wow.
her that my sister.
The year
When
we
I-
did it was the year the breakwall had gone out.
She'll love it.
So it was really
She
close
was
when we
so
got there.
excited.
We were able to swim between the lighthouse and the breakwall, and you see this,
She's into it.
the wooden crib that's down there. Probably not, there's steel re-rod that was low enough, we weren't in trouble, but the size of the wooden crib that they built to
She
just
can bring
dump
it
the
at
foundation.
470.
Okay.
It was really, I mean, not something you get to
She
see.
could bring it to my
Normally,
house,
yeah.
which is next.
And I'm not swimming across the bay again to do it. Well, good for
They
him,
had
those guys
their
probably
their
went.
tour, but it was
an hour and
after
a half.
9 and.
Hour and 38
they went to bed
minutes.
really early.
That's-
Wow.
So,
Wow.
That's really good.
I think.
I don't remember how old I was, but when I was taking one of the swimming classes down at the beach, I had to swim out to the end of the point and back, and I felt like that was torture.
That's,
That's a hike.
yeah, because I think if you go to the end of the point and back, that's,
Well, coastal
almost 2
crawl,
miles.
it's almost 2 miles. They go
Yeah.
out just beyond the tip
Yep.
and back in, and that's the 2 miles.
and the 1 mile is barely past like the casino where the old Pointer dock is.
Yeah, that's,
It's deceiving how far that is.
it's a lot. I do the mile, and that's far enough.
I don't know if I
Water
could
swimming
anymore.
is exhausting.
I supply support. book.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And it's full of beer and coffee and stuff.
Demonstrate your intelligence. Yeah.
I'll join that.
So we're waiting, Jack did say he'll be here.
We do have Lee on the phone, so we are at the point where we do have a quorum, but if we want to give it a minute or two, or do you want to
Let's go ahead
start?
and start and
Okay.
get through at least if there's anything significant until we get down to the first few business, but, you want to call the roll?
Yeah, Mary Catherine Hanna,
Here,
Andrew Bowman,
Here.
Al Dyka,
Here.
Beth Rahali,
here.
Lee Kramer.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Any approval of the minutes from July 16th, 2020 regular meeting? Anyone have any comments, questions, corrections on the minutes?
Yes. I see George Pete's name is spelled a couple different ways. And I think it's T-O-E-T. But it's in the approval of the minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Page 1. And motion 5A,
Yeah,
5B.
yep, there should not be an E on the end, I believe.
Any other ones, Lee?
Nope, looks good.
There was one that said, where it said Bowman stated he arrived late and was not part of the approval of the minutes.
That, right,
Redundant, or is that what you want? I was not part of the approval of the minutes.
oh, yeah.
I didn't
Was not part of the
participate.
approval of the minutes. We have, yeah.
I mean, I see what you're going for, but
There was somewhere it said, can you tell I read where I write my name? It said Bowman stated since the code is a statewide standard, he would I don't know if I said statewide or citywide. I think it's more what I meant to say.
Where's that one?
Second page, top of the second page, under 4, but
Oh,
carried over.
stated since the second paragraph.
I think I meant to say citywide, or I think I said citywide standard. That's all I have.
That's easy for us to check, but we can correct if needed.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve as amended.
You have support?
I'll support.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Public comment or correspondence for anything that is not on tonight's agenda. Moving right along. New and old business. We're going to review the goals of the master plan based on the schedule that we approved at the last regular meeting.
Yeah.
So, has everyone had a chance to read Larry's memorandum? I guess we could just jump right in. I'm open to suggestions on how we want to move through these. We do have people on the phone and then also on YouTube, so we thought we would discuss the goal, maybe take member comments, and then see if we have comments from the audience here, then the phone, and then online. And then we can respond to those as needed. So, that makes sense?
Right.
Right.
I guess in my opinion, the first thing we need to determine, at least at this preliminary stage anyways, are the categories of goals sufficient?
I'm sorry,
Are they-
Larry, I just have to get my glasses out of the car.
I understand. You know, the natural features and aesthetic character, housing and community, recreation, economic, those major topics, are those the appropriate topics that represent the character of the city of Harbor Springs? Are there more that you would like to add? Would you like to modify those in some way, those major categories?
Are you talking about like the A, B, C,
Yes.
D? Okay.
There's 7 of them, major categories, and thus there's 16 goals under those 7 categories.
We should probably pause for a minute because our quorum walked out the door.
Now it's.
Now we can plug.
Now we have a quorum again. Jack's here.
About not sitting in my seat, Al.
You weren't here.
She needed her keys.
What's your name?
Oh,
My name.
So I don't know if you want to put the foot down. So she can
Am I in the right place? Sorry.
Yeah,
Nice fresh
I
air.
gotta read. Here.
That was a good move, dropping the purse in the door so you know you can get back in. I like that.
You'll have to carry a purse now, right?
That's right. Yeah, who says I don't?
All right.
Should we wait for that? or-
Sure. It'll be a few minutes. She sounds like she's coming back in.
She was just getting her
There
gun.
we go.
Got 'em.
All right.
So Jack, a question that, I don't know if you heard, the question that Larry posed is the main categories under which the goals are presented, A through G.
Uh-huh.
Do we feel those are the appropriate titles? Should one be added? Should any of them be combined? Should they be retitled? That was the question that we sort of were first considering.
Honestly, I think A could either be folded into some of the others or gotten rid of. I'm not sure what it adds.
I kind of disagree. I think that's an important one for our town and aesthetic character and natural features that,
I
something that's.
agree with you, Jack. I think that's the whole point of Harbor Springs practically.
When I've ever gone anywhere and said that I'm from here, first people say, how did you manage to do that? It's such a neat place to live year round. That will get into some of the other things, but people say the natural features and aesthetic character of the town is what sticks out in their mind as something that they remember and something that I care about maintaining. I like it.
I don't disagree in the sense that I think those are incredibly important things, but I don't know what, first of all, I don't know what these two things, the two goals under it, call out in the sense of creating a policy that then we create goals to achieve. And are there ways that you can fold these things into the other goals? Because I think you're right. I think they underlie everything else. And so we need to actually pull them into some of the other categories.
Well, number two, goal two, Harbor Springs will be a quaint, vibrant community. Attractive streetscape, amazing views.
I think the first one to me is significant enough that it should be separated. The only thing I might be in favor of is actually making it more of a, almost a mission statement that it's acknowledging the single most important thing in the area, which is the reason that everybody, first started to gravitate here in the first place. So I think it's important to have the natural features and aesthetic character called out, standing alone, either as it is now, or actually emphasizing it even more and making it like a mission statement, if that's the right terminology.
Maybe a misunderstanding of what was stated though. What was stated was that either get rid of it or roll it into another
And
one.
I disagree with
And
that.
to get rid of it is off the table.
Yeah.
I don't want to roll it into something because we've all seemed to, well, these three people have indicated they want to keep it as a main idea. If anything, I would go towards emphasizing this even more.
I would look at that. And the one thing I did, in fact, I was going to potentially add, we're getting a little bit off, but if I was to add something underneath that aesthetic character and natural features, while we mentioned the views of Little Traverse Bay, we don't really, I wanted to just say, we should comment directly about preserving and protecting the water, the quality of the water and the harbor itself, and it's in the name for crying out loud. Why don't I mention harbor in the opening statement of the master plan? It's in the name of the city. So I think emphasizing it more as opposed to rolling it into the others is more what I'd be in favor of.
I agree with that.
Any other of the boldface A through G that we feel need to be wordsmithed or removed, or leaving the talent category?
B jumped out at me as one that's important, but I don't know how realistic it is. We talk about this all the time, affordable living in town, including quality housing for all residents of the community. I think we would want to maybe say something we would encourage that.
What we're doing right now is just making sure that the A through G are appropriate categories. We're not talking about each individual goal, but we're going to come back to those if we agree with the categories.
I do agree.
Okay,
Got it.
okay. But I appreciate your input though.
Are you open to any public input at this point, or do you have to open the meeting?
I don't think we necessarily are opening public hearings, so I think it's appropriate to take public comment. Because, once, every time you get tired of listening to us, just let us know and we'll take it on.
I mean, if you're willing to, let me participate.
Yeah, we don't want to comment right now on anything other than what Larry just described, the boldface points, and then we'll move into the goals themselves. So,
I do have something to add right there as an idea. I'm Phil Mulder, by the way, nice to see you all again.
Yep.
And the economic development, I think there could be a stronger title for that. And that's what we've been involved in at Herbert Inc. is trying to, maybe it's more, business climate or economic climate. And, it's not just about shopping. It's about making it a great place for entrepreneurs and people to start a business and people who work remotely. So there could be a stronger title for that than economic development.
I think that's a good suggestion. It seems sort of a dated term.
Economic health or business environment.
Well, I was gonna suggest something a little different, which is to say, I think housing is important enough that it should stand on its own.
Oh, is it buried in that one?
Well, it's housing and community. And I mean, you could make an argument on each one of these about how you could combine or recombine them because they all play into each other. But, one thought that I had was housing stands alone, and then it's economic and community development, which kind of broadens that a little bit. I mean, at this point, it's,
But isn't that
slicing the apples.
Yeah, you're talking about
about?
D,
D, yeah, D. And the development part seems to be more about, attracting business, and that is part of it, but I'm just thinking about the climate or the economic health or business health or business environment. But yeah, I think housing, now that Mary Catherine mentioned that, housing, may warrant its own. It's so important on what's coming up for us.
Okay. So the two comments I'm hearing are potentially reworking and maybe broadening the idea of economic development to include kind of the greater business community, and then potentially separating housing and community, and potentially including community more in the economic and community development. As I now look at, E, moving down the list, waterfront and harbor, does it make sense to have natural features and aesthetic character? I think it's important to have those two separate still, but it almost seems like it ought to go to A to B, and then, housing should be C. I would potentially move the waterfront and the harbor onto the front page, right underneath.
Yeah,
Or even above, the current configuration of natural features and aesthetic characters, so.
I like that idea, that flows.
At least get it on the front page, and then I almost think recreation coming beneath, natural features, and then waterfront, the harbor. I guess recreation doesn't have to be run under that. I mean, I think these are all equally important. The ordering probably doesn't matter that much. It just seems like those two being closer together on the page make more sense.
Okay,
Well, and I think, natural features and aesthetic character, and then the harbor and the waterfront, I think your goals, and then your, what do we call under the goals?
objective.
Your objectives will flow together
Yeah.
and kind of lead into one another, and we might avoid some repetition if they are.
Two comes later.
Closer, yeah. Okay,
Any thoughts on transportation safety and pedestrian amenities? I think Lee, was that your comment, your email?
His is on the actual goals, I think.
Okay. down
Yes,
below.
but that's not at the heading, that's.
Okay, I just was looking at it, okay. And then I guess we probably, public facilities and services, that sort of speaks for itself. So
Something that hold.
either Lee just pulled out the guitar, or.
I think he,
Nicely.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
I am,
Very strongly about transportation safety.
if you give me just 1 second, I'll call in so that we don't
Okay.
get that. Where's my? There's one.
and public facilities and services seem to make sense as the last one.
I think that makes sense.
Okay,
Does that give you enough detail on the comments, you think?
oh yeah, for those broad categories. So let's go back up to,
Did we have any comments on the broad categories from anybody online? This music pretty much sums up trying to do meetings remotely.
Me. All right.
Did we get Lee back?
No, I called in so that we didn't have the music.
Covers that. And did we have any comments on the,
That's Lee.
Lee?
I dropped offline there.
Okay, we got Lee. Any more comments, Lee, on the headings themselves?
No, this is
Okay, any comments from the YouTube feed on the headings themselves?
No, we have not received any comments yet.
We can move on to the actual goals underneath each heading. Well, I'd already made the comment, and maybe it's redundant now, because if we move the harbor and waterfront over to page 1 to make that B, I think my comment about trying to add anything regarding the harbor under natural features and aesthetics characters might be redundant. So. Any other comments on the goals themselves under natural features and aesthetic character?
I think goal 1 is fine. It's pretty straightforward, and I can see how one would easily set objectives under it. Goal 2, I will say I don't like quaint. But that gets into wordsmithing and what words mean to people. Quaint to me says old fashioned, and I do not want us to be seen as an old fashioned town. I want us to be seen as forward thinking and, making sure that we have the amenities that are ready for the next generation of people who are gonna live and work and play here. And quaint to me does not say that. Quaint says doilies and tea cozies.
You're right.
I would.
So,
Historical.
historic maybe, but, as has been pointed out, we do have, some historic homes, but not everything here is historic. And we certainly have plenty of stuff around here that was built in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and
Nothing built in the seventies is quaint.
I would totally agree with you on that. I like some mid-century modern stuff, though. I think it's really cool.
I don't love the word quaint. I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
When people describe the town, they're like, what a quaint town. I mean, it's not my favorite word. I would agree with you. But I do hear it a lot. I'm trying to think of a different word.
So as a goal, as something that we are aiming towards, envisioning for Harbor Springs to be, and that we want to think about for us, and then for the next generation, what substitutes.
Well,
As a-
do we have to say anything? Harbor Springs will be a vibrant community. We don't need that adjective of quaint, just drop it. And it will be a vibrant community with an attractive streetscape and amazing views.
And I would like to add, and maybe diverse is not the right word, but something along those lines will be a vibrant community with a diverse and attractive streetscape, which is to say different things on the street, not all the same thing. A diversity of uses that are happening in the spaces, because that's what makes it interesting downtown.
Yeah, but a lot about what we are is, or how we are perceived is because we do have kind of a look.
I'm not saying not a look, just diverse uses. but
I
don't
like
know
just
how you would say
eliminating
that.
quaint and going with
Yeah, I wanna
vibrant, because I
get
think
too
vibrant
fancy.
sort of is, if you go to an area where everything's sort of cookie cutter, it certainly doesn't come across as vibrant. I think vibrant sort of covers a multitude of things. If it's vibrant, it's interesting because as you go down the street, hopefully you're experiencing something a little different around. We don't have any corners, so not around every corner, but in every building.
I'll give you the elimination of quaint,
We will kill quaint.
but not the inclusion of diverse.
I would say, the only thing I thought about is attractive streetscape and amazing views, are those sort of flip-flopped? Would you go with amazing views and attractive streets? I want to emphasize more the natural feature than the streetscape, but I'm now getting in the weeds, so.
Okay.
I like just removing quaint.
Fine.
It's good with me.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just want to raise the issue of views. That has been, it was a lightning rod during the last couple of council meetings regarding the West Bluff.
Yep.
And it was picked out, the views appears in a number of places in the master plan, and it didn't support what some of the citizens wanted. So just wanted to raise that as a lightning rod.
No, I get it, and I think the master plan, for better or worse, is quite often, it's only dusted off when you're trying to find a handhold
Yeah.
sometimes. And that certainly has happened in the past. I think the view doesn't necessarily, to me, the view means when you're just in town, and maybe it's better to say with attractive streetscape and amazing aesthetics, where you just don't say the word view, where it's,
Maybe.
because people then latch onto it and they say, well,
There's no.
my view is, they start adding a possessiveness to it, which gets to be challenging when things get parsed like that. But I like the idea of including, it's, you can say vistas or something where it doesn't necessarily make people gravitate towards the view from the high school down to the harbor, which is what, is one of the bigger views in town. But
Well, and to be fair, this does not say anything about view of the water.
no, that's what I mean. It's the view, I lived in an apartment that looked up at the bluff, and I thought that was a great view. I had a view of the
Some
people
people
who had a view of the water.
Right.
But it was-
The view of the church, the
Yeah.
view of the steeple,
So,
iconic.
but I agree, it has been picked out before and used to be different ways by different people.
Well, and is there, that would be something that maybe we could work on in the objectives, because the goal 1, of course, is about preserving the bluffs and hillsides.
Right.
And so we would want to make sure that that's something that we were doing as well as,
Not just
as well as views of whatever it is that you think you should have a view of.
So we feel, everybody seems to be fairly comfortable with removing the word quaint. Goal 1 seems to be holding up pretty well. And then we maybe consider some wordsmithing of amazing views if there's a word that suggests.
Well,
things
so
like
maybe to that point, in the first goal, we stop the sentence hillsides and views, period, and don't have the of Little
that.
Traverse.
I
Bay.
think it's, I mean, you'd have, views of the bay have changed, since the beginning of time. So I think it's okay to identify the whole Traverse Bay. That's what we, and if somebody wants to pick that out and say we can never change anything because it would change the view of the bay, well, that's their choice, but we don't necessarily have to abide by that wish. I'm okay leaving Little Traverse Bay. Any comments from online regarding the goals under natural features and aesthetic character?
We do not have any comments online yet.
Prepared to move on to housing and community. I think my only
Well,
comment,
we've reshaped this just to be housing.
yes,
Well, that was the
Potentially,
discussion point
yeah.
that we had.
Yes.
I don't think we fully decided that.
and I think the goals,
Both speak to housing.
right, they
Yes.
really do speak more to housing than communities. So maybe communities either dropped or moved into, I think during our initial conversation about master plan, our first meeting, we talked about potentially either moving community or making it its own category. I think
Yeah.
it probably fits under that, I guess, what do people think about making that its own category? Or is community really covered later by the other subtitles?
Well, collectively, all of these topics
Are,
are the community.
right,
So, I mean, we could knit economic, item D, economic development, and economic health and community, and tie those two together, which was kind of suggested. Or we just drop the whole idea of community, because collectively, all of these things are the community.
right. Are we okay just making it housing?
Seems to be a consensus. I like the word community, but
I don't think it should be tied to housing.
okay.
I think if we kept community, I think we should add a goal that talks about community, but I think Larry makes a point that a lot of these goals are all about the community. So I don't have a problem adding economic and community development, but you might be, again, in the same boat where you're trying to add.
That actually sounds pretty good. Indeed, economic and community development.
I think that even goal, we can get to it, but I think goal 8 might actually sort of play into the use of the word community in that title.
That's establishment.
Yeah,
Not so much housing.
Yeah.
Well, I think the goals underneath B anyway, if you're gonna take out the word community, these are nice goals. Are they achievable? At least we got it in there. I mean, since I've lived here, we're having trouble getting families into town, quality housing for all residents. But we can always still have that as a goal.
One kind of
Encourage, right, put the word encourage.
And the one, something I thought we should maybe add under housing, we got off to a good start, I think, in a lot of part thanks to Jeff bringing it to our attention, but the one thing I see, at the real estate office is, I think the affordable housing in the harbor, in a lot of ways, is going to be, going forward, longer term rentals. I don't have a problem with short-term rentals, but we've got to strike a balance. And I think to put your word that you just said, encourage, was exactly what I was going to add. We wanted to encourage long-term rentals and manage the influx of short-term rentals. So just call out those two things. Don't don't provide a solution, because I think that solution is gonna change as time goes on. You know, right now, it's, I think in pretty good check, but we are seeing more and more people buying with the justification for buying something that they can rent it and not, you know, and generate significantly more income because of Airbnb and VRBO, which is fine in limited numbers. And I think the short-term rental ordinance that we developed is a great starting point, but I think we need the master plan to encourage us to keep looking at that balance between, you know, a monthly rental or a long-term rental that a family might be able to afford versus the demand that's being created by Airbnb and VRBO. So,
Well, do we want to try to create a goal that then talks about, wordsmithing, something that encourages or not neighborhoods, it's not the right word, something about the mix, that the mix of short-term, long-term,
yeah.
short-term people, year-round people, that we want a mix
I
that
just
is
went with-
right for the community. And we don't have to put anything in here about what that mix is,
'Cause
but
it's gonna
just,
change.
because it's gonna change, but something that says that's something we are aware of and are paying attention to and need to check back in on to make sure that our,
I just
I
put
don't
in,
know if we put into a master plan, encourage long-term, short-term rentals, but why don't we just keep it simpler, that we encourage quality housing for all residents?
I wanted to call out specifically the pressure, you know, the fact that I think the affordable housing in Harbor Springs has traditionally been and is probably gonna be even more so in the future as building costs go up and values go up. But I just had something along the lines of I wanted to create a goal of retaining year-round residents by way of encouraging long-term rentals and managing the influx of short-term rentals. And just not say how you're gonna do it or what the right mix is, but just that identify it as an issue that all small towns, you know, even Traverse City and some bigger areas are facing, so.
As a thought, would that be more of an objective under goal 4?
Could be, yeah, yep,
Okay, that like an act, something to do.
yes.
Okay, well, we really need to look at and study the long-term rentals and manage short-term rentals.
Yep.
And explore the best ways to how to do that.
And actually, I think it's a better objective than it is goal, because the goals are, you're right, Jack's right, the language of the goals already talks about it, we maybe need to add that as an objective.
Wait, say like neighborhoods in Harbor Springs will include quality housing for all residents of the community, and there should be encouragement of, how do you want to say it?
Just make it an
Well, it
objective.
will be, we're not talking about the objectives right now, but that may be a better kind of an objective to put under goal 4.
That's where I was putting it.
We're not there yet, but that's where it needs to go in my
I
opinion.
was saying add it as a goal, and then I think your idea, Larry's idea is better, where you keep the goals the same, but add the objective of managing the balance between long and short-term rentals, because I don't think that.
How do you do that?
Yeah,
Well, a lot of times it would be, you know, some of the encouraging developers to do things that are geared towards long-term rentals.
no, I know that, but I'm still not understanding where we're gonna put this line.
we don't have the objectives on here to look
You
at yet.
said goal 4. We're gonna keep that the same.
We're gonna keep that, the suggestion is to keep goal 4 the same, and I'm making a note that we add an objective under goal 4 when we get to that discussion
Got it.
about encouraging long-term and managed short-term rentals.
I missed what.
In terms of Beth's question about how do we do that, there are communities out there today that said, we don't want any more than 15% of our housing stock in short-term rentals. Thus, they know what their housing stock is. It's 1,000. We don't want any more than 15%. Kabam, there's the number. Once we get to that point, the rest of them are done. That's all we're accepting. So there is ways to manage it.
Mr. Chairman, I just noticed something in the housing, and Mary Catherine was getting at more specific about year-round residents and part-time residents. And that's our eternal balancing act. And I think it might be good to say that in there. In fact, the way 4 reads right now, it's kind of wacky. It says, you know, we'll have good housing for everybody who's already here, who's a resident, you know. I don't think it's specific enough to get at the work that we're gonna have to do in the future to get, more diverse kinds of housing.
I think that might, I'm always a little hesitant to start labeling who's a year-round resident and who's a part-time resident, because what that means to one person is a different thing than it means to another.
Sure.
So but I think that might be, again, what Larry said, was make one of the objectives more specific to that balance, because, but I think we,
Number 4 is a goal, it's a goal.
Right,
So
but
if you read it that way, I think it does kind of work.
I think it's really vague and it just sounds like we'll have good housing for everybody who's already here.
But that's a goal, the goal is to have quality.
Right, but that's why, I mean, I'm coming back, I mean, I think it's a really important, and it gets at some of these other issues, right? It gets at economic development, it gets at, services, it gets at, some of the other stuff, but, we have seen a decline in year-round residents in Harbor Springs. The people who live here, work here, raise kids here, that population has decreased dramatically, and it has had implications for Harbor Springs and for what kind of businesses are here, what kind of businesses we attract here. And as we think about ourselves going forward, as somebody who affirmatively made the decision to move here and raise children here, I think that it's really critical that we think about that in terms of a big goal for us is the right mix. And I'm not saying I know what that mix is or how we get there right now, but that a good goal for us to be thinking about is the right mix.
so how would you change 4?
I wouldn't change it. I would add another goal that spoke to, and I don't know how to wordsmith it right now. I would have to play with it some more, and maybe that's something that Larry could find some examples of.
Or just, give me the ideas
Right.
and we'll
Play with,
work something out.
as soon as it's easier to react to language once it's down than to try to come up
I
with it.
I understand, but I got it. Your
Right, getting
key
at,
words, I guess, in that goal would be,
because I like quality housing for all residents, and I can see objectives and how you could design objectives under that to get at that goal, but I think that's different than creating the right mix of year-round and non-year-round. And again, I think you're right, Andrew, I don't know how to define those two things. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think my parents would consider themselves year-round people, but they don't actually live up here year-round.
I figure you gotta do March and April if you're gonna be year-round, because if you don't, you're not.
Yeah.
You don't suffer those,
Suffer
you don't
those
suffer the
many
6
people
months
left.
between March and April, you know.
You don't count?
But I think we're, we wanna be careful not to, and I'm not really thrilled with the idea that, use the word mix. I know what you mean by
Right,
that
it's
idea.
the right
but-
balance, I don't know what that,
Or opportunity, I think maybe it's the right
Opportunity,
opportunity for,
But the word says all.
yeah. I'm good with 4 the way it is.
I really like the ideas, but I like how it was pointed out to me that we will hit it harder in the objectives.
Yeah.
Because the goal is to have all included, so we get it.
And your comment was more, don't necessarily, somehow wordsmith it so it isn't just about people who are already here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be read that way, and the housing thing is gonna be our biggest challenge in the next 10 years, and boy, I think we ought to put it out there, for people to consider specifically. Are we gonna sign up for more diverse housing and more diverse residents, or are we not?
Yeah.
As part of our.
because what we really
Well-
do not want to become is a plantation economy. I mean, that is the death knell for a community, so we've got to think about how to steer ourselves away from that.
Harbor Inc. is driving really hard on this, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to represent the idea of putting it out there in black and white for our community to consider.
I think
Well, if I can
between
add
what
a-
you're talking about and what you're talking about, there's certainly the potential to add a goal 5 underneath this. And I think we are dancing around what that language might be, but probably need to see something from Larry. Or if you, go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I think if we break this down into the simplest of terms here, goal number 3 is essentially, adding new housing development projects, right? Goal number 4 is making things attractive to residents that are already here. Maybe the next goal is making things attractive to draw in new residents, something to that effect. Because I think we've covered each of the other
By
topics.
default, by default, the new housing developments are, some people move around who are already here, but really so maybe the idea of attracting new residents or developing develop new housing that will attract residents from a multitude of.
Can't you just
areas.
add it at the end of 3 and attracts new housing development and what we design there that retains city's character and attracts, add something into that.
New residents or?
New residents, yeah.
Or-
New year-round residents.
I think I heard Lee chime in.
Yeah, has it been noted that the objective under goal 4 currently in the master plan is to research methods to establish higher percentage of year-round residents?
Is that one of the objectives already?
It is.
Yeah.
The objective now?
Yeah.
Under that goal.
So maybe we're already covering it as a specific goal.
Right, but I think there is value because, in raising it up
From an objective.
from an
to a goal.
objective to a goal.
Something very close to what we just read, take it out of the objective and make it a goal.
Because we could, that's very specific in terms of an action step to get to a goal.
But you'd have to reword it a little.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you have to
yeah,
reword it.
Make it a little more viable. I think we, in effort to move through all of it today, I think we've done, I think housing deserves a lot of time and thought. I think that's probably where we're gonna ask for the most. Like,
Working the objectives.
The public
yeah.
input, on those objectives might be the most important thing out of all this, so. Any comments from online, from YouTube?
We do not have any comments yet. I'm going to throw a note on there to let people know to please comment.
And feel ready to move on to recreation, C. Thoughts or comments? Do we like where it falls in the order of things? We've talked about moving things around a little bit.
I like where it falls. It's important. It should be near the top.
And we were talking about pulling E over either,
To B,
yeah, and then make housing C, and then I guess recreation probably fits nicely in there, so.
we make a lot of our income, and what draws is recreation. We have great beaches. We watch them and take care of them. The park where it used to be tennis court is taken care of. Unique collection of recreation activities.
I think in goal number 5, again, kind of, wordsmithing a little bit, but I think we should change leisure. Because again, uses for people's part-time residences have changed, right? I mean, there are plenty of people who come up here on weekends or part-time and work and do other things. So as a feature destination while serving year-round residents.
Feature,
A feature destination, or I don't know, I was gonna say just a destination, but that doesn't really work as a something destination. I just leisure
Vibrant?
destination.
Well, I think the
Diverse.
perfect word would be a recreation
Quaint
destination.
A recreation destination.
But we've used that as the topic for the whole
Right.
category.
And
so.
I think kind of what, Bob was referencing too with Harbor Inc. And I know my sister's up here for 4 months because she can work from up here. So I think, wanting to make sure that we take that into account as well, is my only thought.
How about a work and play destination?
Ooh, I like that.
Work and play destination?
As a work and play destination.
I like that.
What were we gonna change leisure to?
Work and play.
I like that better.
Yeah.
Work and play. I like it.
And you could even just leave it at that. Establish Harbor Springs as a work and play destination. Bam.
While
I like
also
the-
serving year-round
Yeah.
residents. I'm here for that. I want it too. That's why I moved here.
Well, work and play implies both,
Okay.
but that's okay.
You
That's fine.
could have it be work and play destination while serving seasonal and year-round residents.
Great.
Would that work?
Yep, sure. That's good.
Well, it wouldn't be while, so it would be as a work and play destination that serves or for a work and play destination for seasonal and year-round
I
residents.
think that serves year-round, seasonal and year-round residents.
That serves, that's fine too.
Serving.
And we don't need to get into the punctuation and stuff tonight.
Then we're back in tense.
Breakfast on dinner.
Yeah,
so.
you're gonna get it something.
I like 6. Anybody not like 6?
Yep, I think that's good.
7. Does anybody like 7, not like 7? City's plans for recreation facility improvements will be coordinated with the plans of other public entities. That seems logical, and it's probably one of those just kind of has to be there.
Does that call out enough that we mean regionally
I think it will be identified
in the
objectives.
objectives?
Moving on to D, anybody, any more comments?
No.
Online comments on that category?
Nothing online yet.
Lee? Anything?
I'm good.
Good?
Do we have anybody else attending by phone?
I haven't heard
Okay.
anybody else.
Economic development, we've discussed the title, and I think we're gonna massage that a little bit. Downtown Harbor Springs will be a regional shopping destination comprised of viable, community-oriented businesses that foster a quality image and continue the city's resort and recreation theme. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say you have some comments on that.
I have a comment.
Nope, okay.
How about downtown eliminates, uptown, could it just be Harbor Springs?
Yeah. Just say Harbor Springs will be a regional shopping destination. I think that
And
makes
if we're
sense.
talking about
Yeah.
Yes.
other businesses,
It's Spice Harbors. That's not mine,
what?
Still,
Spice Harbors.
Yes.
On Lake Street.
You know,
so then it would just be Harbor Springs will be a regional shopping destination.
I mean, I always worry a little bit about value judgment words like quality, because my quality and your quality and somebody else's quality might mean different things.
Well, yeah, but I don't think anybody is wrong when they make their own judgment of quality. It's your own opinion.
Right, but if you lay it out there as a goal, then what is quality as a goal? Can we define it? Can you put your finger on it? Can you create an objective around it?
I think we do strive for quality here.
I'm not saying we don't, Jack. I'm saying that quality
Okay.
means different
And
things to
that's
different
why
people.
I like the word quality
I'm not
because,
uncomfortable with the word quality.
yeah, I like the word quality.
What I don't necessarily love is regional shopping destination just sounds a little, that could be modernized a bit, I think.
Just a shopping destination.
Yeah, I don't,
Yeah, but our economy is so much more than shopping.
that's what I mean.
I hate
It feels a
the
little
regional shopping.
dated.
It's so narrow and it's, I know we have,
that's just part of it.
yeah, we have an extraordinary opportunity. People are gonna come here and start awesome internet businesses. Remote workers are gonna come here and work. And, shopping is,
I think you just eliminate regional shopping destination and say it would be Harbor Springs will be comprised of viable community-oriented establishments that foster a quality image and continue the city's.
And to
then-
that point, continuing the city's resort and recreation theme, that's limiting, quite frankly.
Yeah, I don't like theme.
Resort and recreation, don't we want to be more than just resort and recreation? I mean, that's an important part and we can't forget about it. It's critical to our economic picture, but it seems like one of the big issues is how can we figure out how to be more than that? So that we have year-round businesses that support a year-round community.
I think you almost.
That kind of hits the number 9 a little bit, though, goal 9.
I think,
it could be so much stronger. We're gonna attract people who are running global businesses from the loft co-working space. And,
I think it's an
entrepreneurs are starting their businesses there.
I think
It's so
goal
much more
number,
interesting than shopping.
I think goal number 9 is touching into what you guys are talking about. Harbor Springs will be home to a diverse mix of business.
That's my point.
But then I don't
Right.
want 8 to limit 9.
It
I
doesn't-
almost think
I
you
think
just
it does.
eliminate 8.
Well, that recreation, well, you gotta remember though, we are a resort recreation
Right.
economically based town.
Yeah.
I like your ideas, but I hit on 9. but I think
It's
we-
happening. It's not an idea. It is happening.
Oh, I know, but you
I
take away the
understand.
boats and the ski hill, and you're not gonna have a lot of businesses moving here.
But, a lot of people are coming here
Well,
economically.
the boats and the ski hills came here because there was business here
No, they
first. Yeah, they did.
There was a sawmill.
There was a sawmill that brought people up from St. Louis and Cincinnati, and when they ran out of lumber, they had to figure out something else to do with their
Do you
railroad
think the
lines.
people that came up here in the summer from St. Louis worked
They
at the
came here on
sawmill?
trains
No,
for the
they
water.
came
Hey,
because
They came here because there was a lake.
Because the railroad started selling
Yes.
tickets to come up here to justify anyway, it doesn't even matter, but
You
I
can't
think
eliminate resort.
I don't wanna limit it, I want to encompass more than that. I want to, because if we just say and
Don't you
continue the
believe
city's
9
resort.
encompasses? Don't you believe 9 encompasses?
I believe it
more than
does, but
that?
I believe 8 limits it.
No, it doesn't, because we are both, like I'm trying to explain. We are,
But if the city is just a resort and recreation theme, bam, you're done.
that's why we have two goals. Resort recreation, that's a huge part of why people come here and why I'm here. And then goal 9 also speaks to this gentleman, I forgot. Bill's good point.
Yeah, there's a new dynamic though. It's safety. it's
But you
health,
can never forget why we're here and why people came here, is because of how it looks, how the recreation, the water, the hills, and the bluff. That's always our main, it's a big bread and butter.
I think there is a way-
Bill just mentioned something, things have changed so much with COVID and with people are choosing to live here for other reasons. It certainly is because it's beautiful and it's a great, but it's.
And they can work remotely and also enjoy the recreation.
Yeah,
I think goal 9 covers what we're talking about with this, with one of the more reactive things to the recent pandemic, and also the longer standing trend of people working remotely that I'm sure has been accelerated in the last about 4 months. I think Jack's point is goal 8, you are equal parts a resort community and a viable area that people can now have the option to work remotely and to have other industry. One doesn't cancel out the other. One is not more important than the other, but both of them need to be identified and supported in the master plan, because both are the reasons that half the people sitting in this room are here, if not all of us. So I have no problem. I don't like regional shopping destination. I think of malls. So you just need to bring that, I think you just eliminate that and say, Harbor Springs, Best Point is great. Why eliminate Uptown, since we now have signs that tell us where it is? We should just say Harbor Springs will be, Harbor Springs will be comprised of viable community-oriented establishments that foster a quality image and continue the city's history as a destination, summer destination or resort destination, or how about just recreational destination if we don't use the word resort?
Well, yeah, I don't care, sometimes.
But the resort
I don't mind the word
element
resort.
is part of the history of this.
Yeah.
Well, of course it
The
is.
big
Then I
resort.
think you just leave
But
resort and recreation.
goal 8 is really talking about the brick and mortar image and physical establishments. Goal 9 then really talks about that, plus the new economy of home-based businesses, which has been, like your sister, Mary Catherine, who's
She's not a
operating.
home-based business. She
Well,
works
she's-
for
she's-
ExxonMobil.
Well, I understand, but
Exxon's a home-based business.
Sure, global.
people are
home-based
discovering, and businesses are discovering, big businesses are discovering, we don't need to have a brick and mortar building. People can live anywhere in the country or the world and do their job. And goal 9 really starts to get to that.
I guess I don't see how goal 8 is about bricks and mortar.
Well, a viable community-oriented establishments. Okay, I hear the word establishments, I think of the pier, I think of Irish, I think of, downtown businesses.
Okay.
Okay, those are establishments. Somebody working out of their house that works for Exxon or works for somebody else, okay, that's not an establishment, in my opinion. I don't use that word that way. They are working remotely and servicing the needs and fulfilling their job obligations other than at a physical place where they're
So
employed.
so maybe we come back to the question of what really, I mean, I don't really see that as the difference. What really is the difference between goal 8 and goal 9? Can goal 9, with the addition of some language around honoring the city's resort history, be what we really want to say, which is that Harbor Springs will be home to a diverse mix of businesses and industries, attractively developed and maintained, providing meaningful employment and complementing, I don't like charm, but whatever, complementing the charm of the community while honoring the city's resort and recreational history.
I still like keeping them separate.
Yeah, they're two separate.
What if you go with 8 is Harbor Springs will be comprised of viable community-oriented establishments that foster and continue the city's resort and recreation history
I like
instead of
that.
theme. And just, it makes it a little less.
You drop quality image.
Instead of continue, can we say honor?
Sure.
Lee?
He said he liked it.
Yeah, I like that.
There's just another little aspect of
Okay,
it.
before we move, okay, I got a couple of I likes there. Andrew, comprised of viable community-oriented establishments that
Foster and continue the city's
foster and continue.
history
You said honor.
as a
I like honor.
honor, which other one?
Right.
Honor the community, continue the city's, or honor the city's history as a resort and recreation
Area.
area.
Region.
I'd rather say recognize.
Recognize. Yeah,
I don't honor them to be,
yeah,
I recognize that there's a history that.
I like that.
There's another dynamic that we've actually been working to try to make Harbor Springs the best place to run a business, start a business, and, be a remote worker in Northern Michigan, like aggressively. And we have all the assets. We are ahead of every other small town up here, and that's what we've been working to do, so. The only thing I could suggest is, could we get a little bit more aggressive in, attracting, business people, supporting, honoring, respecting, our business people, so.
I think that would be a great objective under 9. Because then you can get a little more specific, because that's the thing we need to do now. That objective, the goal is sort of something that should be, I think, less specific and longer term because it's going to change. But one of the things we can specifically, we review this in 5 years or sooner.
Yeah.
We want to be able to look at the objective that you just stated and say, yeah, we met that one. So can we change that objective now because we've done it, or can we enhance it? So I think that's a really good objective. So it would still be in the master plan.
All right.
It's not a.
I'm sold. Good job, Andy. Thank you.
So for number 9, can we change charm to complement the history or complement the something of
Could
the
you just
community?
drop-
Character?
Could you just drop
Like
the
complement
charm and
the
just say
character of the
complement the
community?
community?
Or complement the character of the
Existing
community?
Character is a better word.
I like character.
I
can
would,
live
I
with
would go,
character.
I would agree with character.
Okay.
All right.
Like it.
I do too.
Okay, good discussion. Any comments from anyone on the phone? Lee, any comments?
No, I like character act for it.
No other?
We do have a YouTube comment. Scott Reese comments that the arts should be considered as well as recreation. So we did move on, but if we want to touch back on recreation, if we feel we need to mention the arts in there.
I have no problem if Larry, can you work that into one of the goals under
Well,
recreation? Or should it be,
Or should it be part of economic and
I
community
think
development?
he may be speaking to goal, adding it into 8 or 9 under economic
Right.
development. And that
I mean,
would
that
also
could-
fall under community if we add community.
Right, if we
development.
added community to this, I could see how that could be either made into a goal or part of an objective under 9. If we're a diverse mix of businesses and industries, then we could make sure to call out the arts as, part of
And I
that.
think that gives us more reason to, and I think we really have touched on the community in the top goal of 8, and even more so, it makes sense to economic and community development as opposed to just economic development.
Okay.
What if you call it
Good point.
development and innovation? If you added economic and community development and add innovation as opposed to just development,
Economic and community innovation,
as opposed to development.
right?
And that seems to bring in the idea of more things that are different that we haven't had in the past, not just improving what we already have.
Good. I like that.
Is everybody comfortable? Do we have any, so that was it, Scott Reese's comment?
Yep.
No other comments on mine. Moving on to E, waterfront and the harbor. We're gonna move that over to B, but we can discuss
Right.
goal 10 and 11. I like 10.
I do too. And I think we've done a good job with it.
And I think 11 is where there might have been some recent.
Boy, that one is, um, 11's been brought up.
What sustainable level of human use is necessarily. I mean, I think I know what it is in the concept, but it seems pretty specific for a goal. He knows what it is. She, sorry.
Maybe we should close that door. Fresh air felt good.
We know he's awesome.
Any harbor development or redevelopment will strive to maintain open views to the extent possible.
Or will consider.
Will strive to consider and maintain open views to and from the water for the public to enjoy. I don't really know sustainable level of human use. It's kind of weird.
What does that even mean?
I don't know.
Well, I get it. We don't want it to be overcrowded and we don't want, products jammed up,
Wall to wall
I guess I
Wall
can't imagine a
things.
project that would be approved that would just kill humans. So it seems like they would all support.
Right, but
Yeah,
I think too, I get it, what they're trying to get at. Sustainable meaning, that it can sustain the use without degrading, that it's not gonna be, we're not gonna erode the
or
shores,
you
we're not
eliminate all
gonna.
the room for kayak storage, or, the boat ramp gets pulled out, or, I think,
Do we need that language in there?
I almost think waterfront, for the public to enjoy.
Yeah, period. But will strive to maintain open views.
I like adding strive,
Because
because will is almost like shall, which gets you into.
that's the problem, and that's where we got into issues, right?
I think
But here's where, and I'm not Jim Raymer, I'm not the city attorney, I'm gonna say that us going back and reworking this language could potentially be problematic.
No,
I
cannot.
think if you add strive,
Absolutely cannot.
I get, Jack, from a legal perspective, and it's from public there is nothing about the current project that impedes views from the public, right? This was all a private person who was upset about their particular view from their particular property. So there's a part of me that says, what's the problem with this?
Well, we're trying to make it a little more readable by taking out some words at the end that seem kind of odd. And I think, will is a word that we will maintain, that we can't do that. We should strive to maintain.
I think because it's beyond the regulatory control of anyone to dictate what a private owner does with their property that may impact somebody else's view. I like the addition of strive. It identifies the value for the public. And I think we're not just changing one word, we're eliminating some language that I think is sort of odd and support a sustainable level of human use.
That I agree, I don't know what that, I don't know
what
how
that
to
means.
create an objective around that, but
Maybe you say, maybe instead of sustainable level of human use, you say any harbor development or redevelopment will strive to maintain open views to and from the water for the public to enjoy, or say something to and from the water and will encourage a high level of public enjoyment and use.
I think we can keep it even simpler and just say to and from the water for the public to enjoy.
Okay.
Period. Take out and support sustainable level of use, add the word strive. It's my suggestion. Anybody else?
Sounds good.
Any online comments regarding the waterfront and the harbor?
Nothing new.
No, thanks.
We just enjoy having somebody here to talk to.
I can't believe somebody's watching this on TV though, that's kind of.
We have 3 viewers.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
What do we get for a planning meeting, like the regular meetings more, right?
I think it really varies. Sometimes we have a number of people. I think sometimes it just depends on the popularity of the topic that we're dealing with.
Apparently this is a little dry.
Still, a guy is good, I mean, how about that?
But this
So-
is actually a really important.
Great stuff.
Would be valuable.
This is almost like the foundation of the master plan.
It is,
Yeah.
this is big still.
So with that, are we comfortable moving on to F, transportation safety and pedestrian amenities?
You know, we do a good job with Goal 12 with the police, and then we have, you know, one-way streets in certain areas because we want to make sure that we control traffic. We have one-way street, so I like Goal 12, and I think we do a heck of a job with that. You know, it's one way by the city. That's worked out very well, I think. And the roads look nice, we're always redoing something. You know, we just redid a bunch of them, they look nice.
The only comments I had on that broader heading, which I think, again, as Jack and Larry suggested earlier, is these things are better under the objective, but just, I think that we get to the objectives, if you can make a note, that the connection from the north side of Bay Street to what we're calling kind of Marina Park is completely undefined. I think there's one crosswalk by Bar Harbor, the rest of it is just Frogger. You know, we try to get across.
You're where my base, what do you
So if
say?
you go down like Spring Street or anything other than the Bar Harbor corner, there's no crosswalk.
Isn't there one by the, yacht club?
Yeah, you're right, way down there, but as far as like in the central business district, and that waterfront park, now that it's Marina Park, or what we kind of unofficially call it, maybe somebody should name it, people want to get down there more, and I feel like it's just so hard to get across that street, and you watch it with, you know,
Well,
families and kids, and so I think that's
You
just an
could
objective.
put in there after the word roadways and crosswalks.
I was-
Well-maintained systems of roadways and crosswalks.
Yeah.
Does that go with 13? And I know we had some other, he got at some of what I was trying to think about is those sidewalks. Like, where do we talk about safe sidewalks and not just as safe, but as connectors?
Well,
Well,
we are trying to do, you could say, system of roadways, sidewalks, and crosswalks.
I think Lee's change, I slow down enough to read it. I think his change would be I agree with his change to goal 13, and that makes goal 13 the perfect place to list the objective of connecting, because that's something very specific we could check off in the next 2 to 5 years or less, and then change that objective when we do this again. So I like that change that Lee suggested, and then placing my ill-timed comment as an objective under there. And I would also include something in there about to encourage and manage the bicycle traffic on Bay Street. I think a better, definition. But that gets in the objective. So I think those two things from spending a lot of time on Bay Street are important.
Yeah.
But I think we can beef up goal 12 and add walks and crosswalks and sidewalks.
Sure.
Well, I just somehow want to make the tie that they are not, sidewalks are not just for recreation. Sidewalks also tie people to businesses and
Put that as a-
tourists, residents, that they are that's all part of how we move traffic safely in and around the community. And so I don't know quite how to do that.
To add a comment for Andy Potter, who has been working on a lot of our sidewalk projects and other things, a phrase that's being used quite a bit lately is non-motorized pathways. And I know that he's got a lot of stuff, and that kind of includes sidewalks, other things, the boardwalk. I know he's got a lot of stuff that he's been working on for that. Complete streets is another good phrase.
Right.
If we want to maybe replace network of trails with either complete streets or, something that would incorporate those other ideas.
We don't even have a network of trails in town, right?
I think the,
Well, conservancy trails. but
maybe meaningful and inviting non-motorized pathways. I don't know if that
Well, is there a
broadens it from
difference?
trails.
And is there a difference? So the first one seems to be about moving people around in town, in which case would you want to replace system of roadways with complete streets? Because then that ties in things like sidewalks. And the second one seems to be about, the straight up trails that connect us out to the larger community and region. And is that a meaningful distinction that we want to keep here?
I don't mind complete streets. Is that going to mean something to somebody in 10 years? Is that a program that's specific, or is that just a new terminology that's updating sort of?
It's been around for
But
a while.
it's been around for quite a while,
Okay.
and
I mean, it's not trendy where it's going to be gone in
It shouldn't be,
Okay.
and it's recognized by a lot of agencies too.
So it's something that needs.
So it's something that would be wise to put in here.
I'm okay with just replacing system of roadways with system of complete, or maintain complete streets. Is that enough to say it that way without system? That makes sense to everybody?
I guess, yeah, I've never heard the word myself. but
Because that, I mean,
what
that would
Larry
take
said.
care of,
The
say,
objective 3 talks about complete streets in goal 13.
right, so we're just moving it up into the goal,
Maybe that objective gets
yeah.
changed.
And then that objective might get changed or get detailed out into how do we actually get moved to complete streets in terms of the objective, that objective.
And I think we can address the crosswalk. I think Jack had a suggestion of, you want, with Lee's change, you were saying, Jack, am I reading it right? The residents and visitors of Harbor Springs will enjoy safe, accessible sidewalks, crosswalks, and public ways, as well as meaningful inviting network trails. So just call out crosswalks specifically.
That'd be fine.
Give
There's
you
some
enough.
trail there.
Yep, that works.
Any online comments?
No.
Anyone on the phone? Comments?
We have anything about mass transit, is that one of the objectives, or is that?
It could be an objective, I think, because I think that would potentially fall under.
I don't know.
I was just gonna
Very.
say,
Yeah.
very.
I like seeing it chugging along, yeah,
I mean, would we want to add in a goal as a goal? And this is again, big picture, big goal that we would, and we don't even have to commit ourselves to doing anything, but to cooperate or work with or be a part of the regional, explore the regional
I
public
would say
transportation.
explore, or, because I think if you, what if there's some means of public transportation that comes about that you're not really necessarily enamored with, or just doesn't fit physically in town, but they want to create a style. I guess I'm more comfortable with it being an objective than being a goal. That seems to give it more gravity. It isn't, it's
I
not,
don't know, I
it's not a
think-
data bus, but what's the regional, is it Emmett County does the
MGO.
MGO?
MGO.
Well, but MGO unfortunately is about to go away.
MGO way.
So right now it's Straits Area Regional Ride, but there are discussions going on about a regional transit authority. And that could incorporate lots of different types of
And I guess that could be an
transportation.
objective, is to coordinate and
But
explore.
where would that fit under either one of these goals? Because these are about, both of these goals are specifically about Harbor Springs. And neither one of
It
them
might
talk
be under
about a
providing effective
regional.
linkages between, I guess it's really under complete streets.
Yeah.
It's not means, it's infrastructure.
Between dwelling services and employment areas, I mean, that kind of talks about it.
How about effective linkages in transportation between and among dwelling services and employment areas? That transportation would open up the idea of making that an objective. Because it's not just, you're right, it's sort of incomplete, and then it says providing effective linkages. Well, figure it out, good luck, the road's there. So if it was linkages in transportation, that would give you the opportunity to put a more specific objective that once you met it, maybe you modify the objective years down the road, but not the goal. That makes sense. Any comments from YouTube?
Nothing more on YouTube at this time.
No one's chimed in on the phone other than Lee? Are we good moving on to G, public facilities and services? Seems.
We've done, 14 we do a nice job of.
Yeah.
We have nice facilities. 3 options to use the rest of them.
What is a strategic public service?
That's a good question.
Well, you got the Chamber of Commerce, right, strategically, right there. You got the bathrooms right there.
I guess it's,
Are these city services though?
yes.
Yes,
Public services can encompass quite a number of things. So even when we're talking about, transportation, to some extent that can fall under this as well,
Okay.
I
public
think.
services would include also like our snow removal, our park cleaning, and these guys, up in the morning running, they're out there without.
I think it's just implies that there ought to be some rationale why you're doing this when or that when.
They do a great job.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we really need to, booster that up. These guys are up every morning in the blue truck.
Yeah, I do wonder what strategic means. Do we need that in there?
I don't think you need to take it out.
I don't either, because I do think it's probably not a terrible thing to take it out.
I guess that it's sort of self-evident that you shouldn't provide unstrategic services.
And we already say consistent with, and I'm assuming this means the residents' desires and needs.
I would change there.
With the residents'
Okay, it's up
desires.
above residents.
Yes,
yeah,
that's the
okay.
referent, which is not entirely clear, but,
Leave strategic and add the residents, I think, might work.
Residents of Harbor Springs will experience.
Oh. No, that's already in there then.
efficient, productive, and strategic public services consistent with their desires and needs.
Yeah, we
How
don't
about
need to put
with, yeah, that's fine. We're getting in the weeds here.
Yeah,
I like it.
did leave it.
15, seems like we ought to have utilities.
Clean water's been great. I haven't had dysentery in a while.
That's right. Not from the
I
water.
gotta tell you, the lake was the clearest it has been in forever when
You
I
can
was
drink
in
that
Lake.
water.
That's- No, I mean, like, up in Goodhart, you get all the algae gum.
Algae, yeah.
That's-
And if the wind was coming out of the north, there were bowlers, and it
That
was still
tends to move it,
clear.
when you get east or southeast, you get a little more.
It was great. I
Sure,
was like,
yeah.
this is like.
It's all the,
That's really cool.
it's all the new mussels or
That's
whatever
what I
those
hear
things that are in the,
anyway,
yeah.
cleaning.
Another one? Great.
Or whatever.
Harbor Springs will assume a leadership role in nurturing productive and cooperative communication with local and regional agencies to ensure the highest quality and most efficient systems of services production for the city.
Seems like we try to do that. That'd be,
That's part of it.
yeah, Harbor Inc., but also we do kind of communicate, that's Jeff Rim stuff, right?
Yeah, you're in contact with the townships, regional. I guess I don't see, again, for tonight, do we need to change, modify, or eliminate that language? Or do we feel it must be working because it's.
It's
And I guess
going
more
great.
about you guys on that one, like, does it seem to speak to what you guys are doing?
Well, I think, to some extent, having some of these things in here and having some objectives under them puts us in a position where it opens up the opportunity for grant monies and things, should we have a project that we maybe can't afford to do on our own. So,
Great point.
having that as part of our master plan, and this section, I think, also paves the way for our, what's the sub part of the plan with the specific projects that the city has, Larry?
Oh, the
Capital
The
improvement.
capital improvements plan, I think it kind of leads into some of that stuff as well.
Good point.
Perfect.
So I think we have left F, G, untouched, correct?
Right.
Good with that? Okay, we have completed the master plan goals discussion.
Okay, now that we've completed that, I'll ask the question again. Is there anything in your minds that have popped up that says, what about this category?
I forgot.
Did we forget? Now, this isn't the last opportunity you're gonna get at this either, because you may be thinking about this and wake up in the middle of the night and go, oh, what about, I better write that down so I don't forget. I'm sorry, Barb.
You mean for a goal?
Yes,
Or actual category
or a
itself.
category.
I'm comfortable with the categories personally.
Does something jump out to you, Larry, that we're missing? Because this is more in your world. I'm not gonna wake up tonight and think one. Frankly.
I think we've
I don't
covered
wake
it.
up and
But I
wonder.
just want to make sure that you also feel that way, that we've covered the major topics of what makes up this community.
We do have another YouTube comment from Scott Reese that public parking should be considered in some way.
Would that
So-
be incorporated with this new term, complete streets?
Yes.
Okay, so that could be an objective under that goal 12, under transportation, safety, and pedestrian amenities. I think.
Parking is part of complete streets.
Yep, I think Mr. Reese makes a good point, and we should make sure I believe it is, but we should keep it on the table for an objective.
So Larry, side question for my knowledge, we're going to go through community outreach and get feedback from the public.
Yes.
And following that, we're going to be essentially, to some extent, coming back to these goals and kind of maybe relooking at them a little bit and using that public input to develop our objectives.
Yes.
Is that the,
That was the whole notion. Like, it doesn't help us to sit here without, in my opinion, public input and write all the objectives, because we're doing that based on your collective knowledge, which is great. But I thought we would try to gather together more public input. These are our draft goals, and try to solicit public input is their ideas of, we got to work on this whole idea, how we do this, but is to get thoughts and ideas from the public of what's important to them.
And those surveys could also result in further changes to
Goals.
these headings and the goals.
Yes.
Okay. I think it was good that we did this because we've probably made them a little more logical, hopefully.
Yes.
And then,
Well, and it's, we can present it to the public as these are drafts. This is a first cut. These are not final.
Good.
They're all subject to change, which everything always is up until it's adopted, so.
Okay.
Okay?
Everybody
So is
understand
the,
that process?
sorry.
Nope.
I was just gonna, so then I'm remembering our plan. So the next step then is for us to develop those surveys, or you guys to develop those surveys?
I think we need to work, staff needs to work with, to figure out how the best way to solicit, given the COVID-19 situation that we have going, and gathering people together to solicit public input in traditional sort of a fashion, which I don't think is a very good idea. But to use the system that Victor has been using recently with online surveys through the city website, he's been having great response that way.
I think, no offense to the person that did come tonight, but I think based on the attendance tonight, that survey people really respond to those. I
Oh,
think
yes.
they're more effective and independent of the current COVID situation. I think it's a great way to get, sort of, some people just aren't comfortable coming in and speaking in public.
That's right.
I'm one of them. So I think it would be a good thing to do. Do you anticipate being able to run some of those surveys, at least before the September 3rd meeting?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
Where we are right now, just to give you what's going on underneath all of this,
Yep.
is I've been working with staff and Jeff with all that background information, and we hope to have all the staff input of all the things that you were desiring to see by the middle of this month.
Okay.
And then that way I can start digesting and rewriting the whole background information section to present to you. And what we're doing is, what I want to do is just get all the words down on paper, the first draft of that. It's not aesthetics, it's not organization, it's just, this is what background information is going to talk about. And that way we can start reviewing that information also.
We'll do that September 3rd. I don't have the.
Well, we may or may not. It just depends if we can get it all done by then.
And if we don't have that, I'm just curious, the agenda for September 3rd then would be either that, but we probably won't have a lot of survey information back yet, but we could start delving into the objectives at that.
Well, I'm hesitant to get into objectives.
So I'm just sort of trying to discern what September.
We may or
3rd
may not have a September 3rd meeting,
Okay.
so,
That's sort of where I was headed.
yes.
Okay.
So
Hopefully we do.
I don't want to hold the meeting just to sit here and go,
Yep.
we don't have that much to talk about,
Okay,
because that's a waste of my time and your, time and
Sure.
everybody, so.
does that make sense to everybody? If we, September 3rd, we'll get communications from you by mid-month. how
Yes.
it's looking.
Well, at the next planning commission meeting in 2 weeks, we should know,
Okay.
have a pretty good idea of
So
where
we
we
can
are.
set that meeting or postpone it.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Any other member comments? I believe we are adjourned.
Perfect. Anything online or on phone or whatever?
Oh, before we adjourn, I think I was reading some of them, but Mr. Reese said public parking should be considered. We covered that.
We did.
Lee, any comments, member comments?
No, thanks.
Anyone from the public on the phone that wants to make a comment? Okay. We're adjourned.
Perfect.
Support.
Great discussion.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Lee.